Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm going to wait for a few seconds till all of you all have joined in. I can still see a couple of participants growing. Okay, I'm going to wait for a few seconds. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to again start with greeting all of y'all. So I know you guys are joining from all across the globe. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. I am seeing the attendees list and I can see a few familiar names, good partners that I've worked with. So I'm so glad that you are all here today. My name is Neha, and today I have the honor of representing Canterbury Christchurch University, a university that has been transforming lives for 60 years. But before I begin, I just want to remind everyone that this session is being recorded and we will be sharing with all of y'all who have registered afterwards. Also, if you have any questions, you can see the Q&A box below. Please feel free to leave it in there. And we're going to also have a live session towards the end of the entire webinar to answer any questions that come in to the Q&A box. So today, this is not just a webinar, and in fact, I would like to call it as an opportunity for you, for your students, and for the future that you are helping to build for each one. So if you see to the right, there are three numbers that are in there, and these are very, very important, which you have to hold in your mind. So Canterbury Christchurch University is in the top 10, okay, in UK for graduates in employment. Okay. Second one, we have more than 100% countries represented at our campus. So you're going to be sending the students to a global community in here, right? And the third number is that 89% student satisfaction. I don't hear a lot of this these days, but where students are happy, they succeed. And Triple CU, which is Canterbury Christchurch University, is making all our jobs easier. Right. So today we'll walk through everything you need. Okay. Right from the application process to offers to deposits, the readiness, the compliance, which is a very, very important part of what is going around today in the world, and then we'll close with a live Q&A session. So let us get started, because I know all of us deserve the best and we want to ensure that all your questions are answered today. So please feel free to put in all the questions, and as and when the slides are going to be moving around, we would be more than happy to look at the questions in the meanwhile. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Perfect. So before we dive in, the previous one, please, I just want to introduce all our speakers today, because there's an incredible team behind not just today's session, but all that goes into Triple CU. So the first name, that's me. I'm Neha Shetty. I'm the Regional Director for South Asia. I work very closely with all our agents, the partners, counselors, and across the entire South Asian region, and I'm very happy to do so. Joining me today, we have Kashya Krupa, who is our Director of Admissions and Compliance, a very, very important person for all of us. So welcome, Kashya. We're very glad to having you here today.
Really pleased to be here. Looking forward to this webinar. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much. And we also have Saule Shilkate, our Operations and Compliance Manager. I think she's the reason why students arrive on campus feeling fully prepared. So thank you so much, Saule, for joining in today.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you for the kind words. Happy to be here and happy to see everyone here.
Amazing. I know there's another camera which is on, and before I move on to the presentation, we have a very special announcement to make because InUni Global is growing. Can we please have the next slide, please? Yes, so it is my absolute honor and pleasure to welcome Mercy Akanimo, who has recently joined in uni as our Executive Director for International Student Recruitment UK. Thank you so much, Mercy, for joining. Mercy brings with her wealth of experience, vision, and leadership that will shape the future for the international recruitment within uni. So, Mercy, over to you. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of this incredibility.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you, team. Thank you, colleagues joining from all over the world. And thank you, our fantastic partners. I'm really excited to be a part of this journey. And I look forward to working with the team and to you to serve the students that will continue our international recruitment strategy in the UK. In the days to come and weeks to come, I believe I'll be having more intimate sessions with you. But I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to be part of this vision and excited to be part of this team and excited to be part of your journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mercy. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is the agenda. There are 5 sections. I'm not going to go through all of them because you're going to be listening to all of it. But we're going to give you 5 tools to make you unstoppable to recruit the students, right? So moving on to the next slide. Student success starts here. A very big statement, and this is what we are all here to ensure is happening, right? So let us look at the next slide, and let me give you a more detailed understanding about Canterbury Christchurch University, right? And I want to start by painting a picture, right, of what exactly Canterbury Christchurch is and where are you sending your students. This is few of the data, but I think very important that you need to know this because Canterbury Christchurch University was founded in 1962, over 60 years of transforming lives, as I mentioned earlier. And Triple CU has a very clear purpose, which is to make education meaningful and to build these careers. So this has come across with 30,000 students who are already enrolled at Triple CU. It's a vibrant university community that you're going to be sending your students into. And these 30,000 students that have built in the network so far and whom your students are going to be a part of the community, they come over 100 countries. So the students are going to be building a global network as well. So, few things that I'm very personally excited about Triple CU overall. And the first thing is the location, because this is something families and the students care a lot about. Where are they going to be studying at? So, Triple CU is located in Kent. But more than that, it's in Canterbury, which is in Kent. Okay, just to be clear. So, Canterbury is in itself a UNESCO World Heritage City. So, the students that you're going to be sending in are going to be studying in the most historically rich and beautiful cities of England. So, this is not just an education that they're going to go through, it's an experience that they're going to share with all. Right. And if you see, because I've heard this a lot from most of my partners that the students want to study in London, but we know that not everybody lives in London. They still prefer to live a bit away from London due to the cost. So now Kent or Canterbury is just under 1 hour by the high speed rail, as you can see, and your students get best of both the worlds, right? It's a safe, welcoming campus, and it's just very close to London as well. It is also having a very long library, and it's at one of our campuses. So there are 2 campuses at Canterbury with Canterbury Christchurch University. One is the Canterbury, and the second is Medway. So Europe's longest library is at our Medway campus, which is almost 184 meters long. When we say that it's a safe learning environment, the library also speaks about the students' learning experience overall, right? Now, the last 2 points that are there, I want us to remember these because you can use this while you're speaking to students. Of course, we are all aware about the graduate route where 2 years post graduation work rights are available in UK. So all the parents want to send their students to UK because this is where they can build a career, build a future. But the second thing, which is grad force employability programs, okay, let me tell you what this is. So, Triple CU is not just giving a degree, it is ensuring that students are connected to the real jobs, real employers, real career pathways right from day one. right? So this is where our students are prepared to go ahead and face the world and be ready, right? So this is a little bit about Canterbury, where you see two campuses, 60 years of excellence, 100 countries, but it's one powerful future, okay, to remember. Let's move on to the next slide. Why choose Triple CU? Apart from everything amazing that I just spoke of, let me give you another six numbers. I mean, I love numbers, and this is this is something that I'm going to go about speaking a lot. But I promise you that again, these six numbers will answer most of the student queries. Looking at number one, like I have already mentioned, we are in the top 10 in UK for graduates in employment. I mean, it's fantastic, isn't that? Because I know so many universities in London where or any other parts of UK where I don't hear such powerful ranking, but Triple CU has this. And what is even more compelling is the fact that 76% of our Triple CU graduates are highly skilled, which means that they're finding highly skilled roles by the end of the entire completion of the program, which means also that there's going to be amazing ROI for the students, right? Let's look at number two. We are sixth in UK for teaching quality satisfaction. So if you see, according to Sunday Times Good University Guide 2026, it shows that our teaching quality is quite high. So your students are going to be taught by people who are from the industry and they're also experts in their own field. Okay, very important to note. If you see number three, it's fifth for wider student experience and it is improving. So we have improved 105th place in Sunday Times Good University Guide. So when you're sending your student to Triple CU, you're sending them to a university that is getting better and better. So this proves about the excellence that you're going to be sending your students into. Number four, 89% overall student satisfaction. So we are actually 5 points above the UK average, which means nearly 9 out of 10 students are satisfied with their experience. Okay, so just think about it where you're sending your students, right? And again, with the triple silver, ranked number five, triple silver in teaching excellence framework. So UK's government's independent assessment, right, of the teaching quality. Triple CU achieved silver across all the categories, right from student experience, the outcome, and the overall excellence that they have at this moment. Plus, amazing thing because everybody is concerned about the cost, but we are offering a great scholarship, which is 1500, which is flat, no separate application, there's no competition, no stress. So everybody, not everybody, but every international student at Triple CU receives 1500 pounds of their tuition fees. So six numbers, six reasons to remember why Triple CU is an outstanding university, right? Let's move on to the next slide. This is the intake information. I would like to still let you all know that right now in this entire year, Triple CU has three intakes. One is the January, then the second is May and September intake. Right now, we still have our May 2026 intake, which is open for all the students to apply. The deadline would be mostly early next week. But if you still have students for the May intake, there are two programs which are at this moment running, which is MSc International Business and MBA International. So if your students would be interested and you feel with the amazing facts that I just spoke about, this student is going to be a right fit, please do ask them to go ahead and apply. We have time until the next week. And then these are few of the top postgraduate and the top undergraduate courses which are listed in here, which you can look at for your reference. But overall, we have 38 postgraduate courses, we have 80 undergraduate courses, and we have 64 undergraduate with foundation year courses. And like I've already mentioned, we have two campuses, Canterbury and the Medway campus. Amazing. So getting the application right, I think this is the section where it gets practical for all of us, right? So Kashian, thank you so much for taking this forward. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Neha, for the wonderful introduction. And I'm really pleased to be here with all of you. I can see that some people are still joining. The attendance is growing as we speak. And I think I'm moving over to the most important point, which is everything that you need to know just to be practical, support your students, and really be able to do what you do best. And this is why we've designed this webinar, particularly for you partners, to be able to equip your students with the knowledge that they need and with the support that they need to go through the application really seamlessly. And I think we've designed this presentation particularly for you, so it will be sent to you post this session. So you can just have very quick points on what to do in particular situation, how is the journey for a particular flow, and so on. Literally everything in one PPT that you need to know about Canterbury Christchurch. Just one thing I do want to add on my side, I'm very proud to say that the application journey and the admissions journey has evolved over years. Canterbury Christchurch is one of the longest standing partners for in uni. I particularly was involved in signing the contract in the very beginning, and we're talking about now nearly actually nearly 8 years of partnership that we have shared with them. So the application journey has really evolved and has been really simplified over the years to make sure that the students have the easiest journey possible, but the journey that also equips you with the risk mitigation and safety that you need in order for students to go through the UKVI part or the UKVI interview, which obviously Saula will talk about a bit later. As we know in today's world and everything that's happening around the globe, also in the UK, and I'm sure most of you are reading the news, right? There is a lot of areas that are being looked into in terms of UKVI really understanding and putting certain thresholds on the universities. Therefore, what we have done is to make sure that our application journey is really efficient, is streamlined and simplified where possible, but it's also compliant. So it equips you with everything in order to have successful enrollments at the end of it. So in terms of the application pathways, looking for undergraduate and postgraduate, for undergraduate, just quick points for you to know. If the student is applying for UCAS, the institution code that they need to choose is C10. They should use the correct individual course code, as otherwise there may be an issue or delay with the application. We also offer professional courses. So maybe some of you may not know that, but there is courses such as BSc Nursing available, PGCE in social work as well, which is postgraduate certificate. And those ones, however, may have earlier deadlines. So there is quite a lot of applications usually for those. They're very competitive. However, if you apply early, you have a high chance of getting through if everything is provided on time. It's important that you always check the individual course page, or that the student always checks the individual course page before advising or before proceeding with the application. For postgraduate, we have continuous rolling admissions, which obviously, as you all know, or those of you who are our newer partners, you would be applying, submitting an application via Gas Gateway. You would have your own account where the application is obviously submitted. It then flows through to us, to in-uni admissions, to be reviewed, which I will talk about in a second. The normal guidelines would be for you to apply as early as possible. However, we do understand that right now we are going ahead for May intake, and the deadlines are very fast approaching, and Neha may want to say something about that at the end of the session. But I would say if you are still aiming for May intake right now for postgraduate courses, which are available for May, apply right now. Don't wait a single day longer. So I would say apply today or tomorrow, because deadlines are fast approaching next week. So obviously allowing time for processing and deposit payment to be allocated, as well as the visa arrangements. We understand that at the moment with the visa arrangements also there's a specific time. I know there is a certain timelines that students know they can refer to, i.e. if they're applying for priority visa or non-priority visa. However, given during the current situation, I would say the earlier the better, really. If you have any queries whatsoever and you cannot get them answered through the Gas Gateway, you can just simply contact submitccu@inuniglobal.com, and any queries you have will be answered. And those ones are directly communicated to the relevant departments upon your query. So same day upon your query. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So something that everyone is always asking about, which is how does the journey look like really without missing any steps? What do I need to know to guide my student? This is really your full comprehensive journey, not only for the UK, but specifically for CCU. So your application, the student's application will be completed and submitted via GAS Gateway. What InUni will do is review that application and make sure that the minimum documents are screened and that they meet the minimum requirements. The minimum requirements really for CCU is only the transcript, the application form, as well as the valid copy of a passport. If the student doesn't have a valid copy of a passport but has applied for a new passport, the expired copy of a passport can also be uploaded. If we receive those three, so the application via GG, as well as the other two documents that I mentioned, we will issue a confirmation of application, which is a very comprehensive letter, like a conditional from us, basically stating, hey, we've registered your application. Here are the missing documents. And it will have everything you need to know about the journey. Therefore, any steps that you need to go through will be listed in your confirmation of application. We will also at the same time register your application within our system, which is SIS, and list any documents within our platform SIS and also within Salesforce and Power BI. Now, Salesforce is what I understand the platform that you would have access to, as well as your GAS Gateway. So within GAS Gateway, you would be able to see all of the updates that are coming through. For example, if confirmation of application has been issued to the student. You can also communicate, obviously, with your local representatives, with your business developers, who can guide you on anything additional you may need to know. Obviously, there is access to everything in terms of you being able to be equipped with the knowledge to understand what are the documents missing for each student. Usually it will be a letter of recommendation or proof of English. And as soon as those are provided and the student has gone through our in-uni suitability consultation, the file will be referred, which I'll talk about in a second. So upon us registering the application, the student will be sent a link immediately for their AI-powered consultation. Now, it's a very seamless, easy, and user-friendly journey for the student. It's a link that's sent to them that can be used, and the student can take this consultation at any time of their day. There's no date, there is no scheduled interview whatsoever. And I just want to reiterate, this is really a consultation. The reason why we don't call it an interview, it is a consultation to equip and prepare the student to be able to understand what's ahead. And we really need to be able to understand if the student is suitable for the chosen program. If the student isn't suitable, there may be, further communications from us to just suggest a different course and so on. But it's a very short consultation where the student sort of goes through a very user-friendly journey, as well as being able to understand information about Canterbury Christ Church. So it's been really, really designed to support the student throughout the journey. They can learn everything about the CAS journey, they provided links about information directly about CCU, so it leads them to the website. They've got all the useful information. And also there is the AI-powered consultation that would then check on the basic information as to why, what is the motivation that they have, that they applied for this course, as well as a few other questions, which I'm sure Saula will go into more detail later on. So then we move on to, once the student has passed this step, we will immediately be referring the application, obviously given that all documentation has been provided. So the application will be referred directly to Canterbury Christ Church. Canterbury Christ Church receives that application and usually would be issuing unconditional offer letter within 3 business days. So it's a very fast turnaround. And we see for most cases that's the case. The only time if there was ever a situation that an unconditional offer letter wasn't issued within 3 business days, it would be if anything else was missing, or they reviewed the transcript and there's something that they had to go back on. But it's very rare occurrence, and then we would be in touch with you and with the student just to say, hey, we still need X, Y, and Z, or there is additional information required. And then the student would be moving to the deposit and precast stage. Precast is the official interview that the student would need to take with the university as per UKVI standards. And as you understand, this is what all, if not most, universities in the UK are doing and have been doing, especially in the last 2 years during all of the changes that are happening within the immigration systems and the expectations that are there towards universities to ensure that students are really prepared for their visa appointment and students are passing their visa appointment. And as you know, universities are held responsible for the number of rejections that they are facing. So it will be important that the student really attends this pre-CAS interview, because it also equips them with what they need to prepare and understand ahead of their visa appointment. Because as we know, the visa appointment is only once, and if that is rejected, the student would either have to go for an appeal or refer to another intake. And it is important that they're able to pass this first time round in terms of the visa. So precast supports them. I don't want you to see it only in a way that it's just an interview. It really supports them, because if they do have any questions, the CCU staff is there also to help, and it's a human interview. It's a human interaction. It's not, that they would be speaking to a bot. They have staff from CCU directly attending those. The student would also be required to obviously pay deposit. There may be certain arrangements depending on the country, but usually that deposit will be 5,000. And the pre-CAS interview would be scheduled directly from the university. The link is sent, an email is sent to the student, and then the student communicates back. The student is not required to book that interview themselves. The university will be in touch through an email. And if given everything goes well with this, a student, of course, provides their financials for Canterbury Christchurch University to review those, CAS will be released. As soon as CAS is released, we recommend that visa appointment is booked as soon as possible. And here we go to step 8, which is the step we all kind of look forward to, which is visa being passed and student enrolling. Let's go to the next slide. So this is a full application process flow, but I think I've gone through it in a very detailed manner already. So this is just an additional slide to support you. I really would recommend that you go through this, and of course, feel free to share it with your students if you would like. What is the full journey? And I think I've already covered all of these steps, but it's just step by step, literally. So we can move on to the next slide. We also created an additional flow for you, because I know there's been a lot of questions around what are the students' actions? What is really the student required to do within their Canterbury Christchurch journey? So from the moment they receive unconditional offer letter from the university, because they would not be in contact with the university until unconditional offer letter, because it will be in uni who will be handling the application. But from unconditional offer letter, even though in uni would still be sending them the communications to support the student, they will also be receiving very important communications from Canterbury Christchurch. So what is the step 1 that's very important? What we always advise the student, upon unconditional offer letter being released to you, please accept the unconditional offer letter within your portal. They're given link to the portal where they can log in directly when they create their account, and they can directly accept their offer. The student portal credentials are sent, as I just said, they are usually sent within 24 hours. the student is able to upload directly via Canterbury Christchurch portal all of their documentation required for their CAS to be issued, such as immigration history form, student route visa agreement, and financials. So these will be the three needed documents in order for CAS to be issued. The CAS tile, we call it CAS tile, at least CCU does, will be initiated. So the university will activate that CAS tile portal, and the student is able to then pay their deposit through that castile or through their portal directly. The deposit will then be received, obviously, depending on how they paid. If they paid online, there's also other options, for example, where they can pay by Convera and so on. So the deposit tile will be updated that the student has paid. Now, the one thing I would really, really strongly advise is that when the deposit is paid, please send the remittance to in-uni team directly. So, for example, submit CCU, the email address that I mentioned earlier, you can just directly forward the remittance there, or you can forward it to your business developer. Neha, maybe your guidance on here would be timely. How would you prefer this to? But if we receive the remittance directly from yourself, we're able to make sure that the university allocates that payment really quickly. So Neha, I don't know if you wanted to come in here, any specific guidance on where the receipts should be sent to, but I think it's very important that we do receive the receipts for student payments so we can allocate it really quickly.
No, absolutely. I think they're sending it out to the BDs. I think we are then sending it out across to our finance team and they're keeping a track of the same. So, like you said, I mean, it's easier if we can also have the receipt or you can upload the receipt. So it is in our records.
Yes. Okay. So to business developers, and business developers pass it to us. Okay. Thank you, Neha. So payment is allocated. The CAS request is started because immediately upon payment allocation, until sometimes if you're wondering why the CAS request hasn't been initiated, it's usually would be because the payment isn't allocated. And the payment may not be allocated sometimes because we do see sometimes mistakes. And for example, the student may make a mistake or a typo where student ID is not typed correctly, or something has happened where the payment is not, it's not easy for the university to allocate that payment. Therefore, if the student's CAS request has not been started, therefore you can see that tile hasn't been opened within their portal, there's usually a reason or something to do with the payment allocation. Because they need that payment on file. So please double check. Has the remittance been sent to in uni? Has the payment been allocated? Once the CAS request is started, so the student will be able to see all of that, the university will send out an email with the pre-CAS interview. The student is no longer required to book their pre-CAS interview through the tile like they used to back in the day. The process is much simplified. The student receives an email and then they respond to an email. They're given a link and they're able to attend their interview within the scheduled time by the university. And then if that goes well, and obviously those documents within the CAS request are provided, as I mentioned before, the two forms as well as financials, the CAS will be issued, the student will be applying for a visa, and the student will be enrolling. But I thought it would be very important that I detail those points for you to understand how does it look like from the student journey so you can advise or you can support them accordingly. Let's move on to the next slide. So in terms of the requirements, I already mentioned a lot of this. You know, the minimum will be application form, academic transcript, passport, and of the full pack of documents. Students would also need to provide letter of recommendation, CV, and statement of purpose in order to be referred to the university for unconditional offer letter. Let's move on to the next slide. So I'm conscious of time not to dwell too much on the details because you would be given this PPT in your spare time. But I think the important points that I do want to mention is the really providing a high quality scanned copy when it comes to the passport, because sometimes we do see back and forth in terms of the passport being very blurry. Therefore, it's important that it's clear, so there is no back and forth. In terms of obviously the academic documents that are required, it's the secondary school transcripts and certificates that are required. You can submit obviously that's through the application. For postgraduates, it would be a bachelor's degree transcript and obviously certificate showing a final CGPA and completion date. It must be an official non-editable documents. So if you turn it into any other format, it cannot be edited. And the course completion certificates and online results statements, course completion certificates and online results statements are not accepted. So in terms of the English requirements, you can see it all on the screen. What's interesting to see, for example, for IELTS, 6.0 is accepted for undergrad. And I don't know if we have postgrad. So non-standard postgrad, you can also see here. So no elements below 5.5 for undergrad and no elements below 6.0 for postgrad. Let's move on to the next slide. What exemptions do we have? And I think that's what a lot of you are asking in terms of, looking at specific countries. What would be those additional, gems that you can tell your students where students would be exempt from providing their proof of English so they don't have to book their IELTS test, right? So for India, we have a UG and PG exemption. So CBSE and ISE boards, 65% in standard 12 English will then be exempt from providing proof of English. And for state boards such as Maharashtra, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, sorry, I may not be pronouncing this right, Karnataka, Telangana, 70% in standard 12 English. So both UG and PG courses are eligible. And for African countries, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Zimbabwe, you also have exemptions. So A1 to C6 grades, so grades 1 to 6 in English in senior school certificates. WIAC and NECO, these also will be, if a student is able to provide that, they will be exempt from providing proof of English. And also here for PG as well. So in WIAC and NECO English, or completed a bachelor's degree taught in English medium. There you would need to provide your medium of instruction letter. And medium of instruction letter would need directly to come from the school, obviously, stating that the student has taken all their classes in English. And graduates from English-speaking countries, that's the regular role, right? So students who completed their bachelor's or master's degree in English-speaking countries, there's a specific list that I can also provide you that's on the UKVI website. They're fully exempt from providing proof of English. And some professional programs as well fall under that. So TESOL, MA Social Work, MSc Speech and Language. It may require proficiency, but it will depend on the program. Some may fall under different regulations. There are other, I'm not able to cover everything in this slide, so I would definitely suggest that for any other exemptions or specific roles on any other country, please reach out to your business developer. For example, for Sri Lanka, we also have an exemption. There is few other countries. Therefore, it's a very competitive entry criteria that we are able to offer for Canterbury Christchurch, that we have been proudly working on with Neha and senior colleagues for quite a few years to ensure that it is really competitive in the market. Let's move on to the next slide, please. I'm also conscious of time. I think so just in terms of any specific additional requirements, you can also refer to it in your spare time in terms of Haryana, Punjab, and Uttar Pradesh, as you can see here on the screen, as well as Telangana. I'm not going to go through this in very detailed. You will receive this PPT because I'm conscious that I would like Saula to also be able to go through the important compliance slides. The most important thing that I can mention here is just making sure that the correct language test requirements are met from those specific boards. And from those specific regions. So, for example, Haryana, Punjab, and Uttar Pradesh, the student must hold English level language qualification. Let's move on to the next slide, please. I'm not going to go into too much details, but I think what is the important part, apart from what you can see on the screen, we don't want to make this too difficult. We understand the statement of purpose needs to come directly, from the student's heart. Why did they apply for this program? What even excited them to apply? And I think the important part that we need to just remember to go into the foundation, which is that the student writes the statement themselves, that they really are encouraged by yourself to say, why did you apply for this program? Why do you want to go to Canterbury Christ Church? And that statement is written by the student directly. And even if it has typos and mistakes, it is their creative journey. And of course, you can support them with just sort of giving them this guide and asking them, prompting them with very key questions in order to write this assessment, but it needs to come directly from them. The university has a very, very vast experience in understanding what a copied content or a copied SOP looks like. So we really want this to come. They literally said to us, we prefer a statement of purpose that may at times be a little bit rough around the edges than a statement that is perfectly written but sounds robotic and scripted, because it does not come from the student, and we can really tell because we've been reading these statements for years and years, but we've been dealing with students for decades. Therefore, that's just something important for you to remember, because I know that you have the students' best interest at heart, but the most important thing is that we're not over preparing them, and that applies to everybody that's supporting the student along the journey. Also, the parents, sometimes they may want to do well and wish well for the student, but is the student that's going to need to sit in front of UKVI and explain their application. Is the student that's going to need to sit in front of CCU staff and explain why did I apply for this program? And CCU staff may ask them, what's been written in your statement of purpose? What did you say in your statement of purpose, and why did you say it? If a student is not sure because someone else helped them, that's an instant fail. So it's just important for us to remember that. And also, we always compare it to some sort of an example. It's a massive investment that the student is making in their future, right? So it's important that they have researched this. Let's move on to the next slide. I think I've covered most of the points. Again, the important areas you need to remember about letter of recommendation, CV, and so on. And you can have a look at this in your spare time as well. This is very detailed, your perfect guide to ensuring a perfect application. So let's move on to the next slide. In terms of the fees and deposits. So I believe Neha already mentioned this, but these are just the key things for you to remember. There are various scholarships available as well as discounts. So for example, if a student pays in full by the specific deadline, which we're also happy to provide to you in writing, they would be receiving an additional early bird discount, but the usual automatically applied scholarship is 1,500. Those two can be applied at the same time, given that the student meets the criteria for the early bird. The annual tuition fees are 17,000. There is also a limited amount of global engagement scholarships. Of course, specific entry criteria would be requested or would be applied here. Please refer to the website as well. It has all of the information about these scholarships. Let's move on to the next slide. So I think this is again just breaking down exactly how the tuition fees would work. So I think we definitely are just supporting you here to really understand the breakdown in terms of tuition fees. So feel free to refer to this slide in your spare time. Let's move on to the next slide, please. In terms of the payment plans, so the student is offered various options in terms of the payment plans. But payment in full would be obviously encouraged and also would ensure that the student may be eligible for the early bird as well. Let's move on to the next slide. This is more in terms of the current processing times, but again, it's just the top line for you to really understand what would be the overall referral. Let's move on to the next slide. Accommodation and offer acceptance. So again, the student is able to secure an accommodation. However, we strongly suggest that the accommodation is secured ASAP. So as soon as the student receives the unconditional offer letter and formally accepts within the stated deadline, the student is able to apply for their accommodation. They're, of course, assigned as first comes, first serve. So it is strongly suggested that the student applies early. There is key highlights in terms of the accommodation. So all bills would be included, such as utilities and gym. They've got 24-hour security access to all sites, adapted room for students with disabilities. There is support 24/7 in terms of anything that they may need on site, and various residences halls that are available. As you can see here, 4 residence halls are available. Let's move on to the next one. All accommodation information would also be emailed to the student. I'm aware that I've come to the end of my section, so I hope this is detailed enough for you to really understand the journey in and out. Of course, this PPT will be provided to you. I would be handing over to Saula to cover visa readiness and compliance for us.
Thank you so much, Kasia, and thank you for covering the whole student journey and everything we need to know in order to prepare the students and to look ahead of enrolling students at CCCU. And now I'm going to go to the next stage. I know at the moment in the current environment, it's sometimes daunting. All those interviews, UKVI interviews, it might feel like so much until you actually break it down to step-by-step guidance rather than the overall picture that students are sometimes worried about. Now, if you're not worried about it, the students will also be less worried about it. And less worried student performs better in all the interviews. So my goal today is run you through all the stages of interviews and other compliance checks students might go through their journey so you could support them. Because in my experience, where students mostly fail these interviews is when they get scared of them. And when students get scared of the interview, what happens is that number one, they frantically look for a script. Now, bad news is that scripts will not help you. None of the interviews in the student journey, not the consultation, not the precast interview, not the UKVI interview, has a set questions. If there are no set questions and interviewers are improvising, that means that there are no set answers. More than that, we're noticing that students are coming to interviews with scripts that they get from somewhere. We are living in 2026. We all know where they're getting the scripts from. There's ChatGPT, there's Reddit, there's YouTube. And what we hear then is identical answers. How you may know that the answers are identical? Well, me and my team, we do thousands of interviews a month. The student opens their mouth, they say one sentence, and we just know. I know it's easy to say that. I know it sounds vague and far-fetched, but as the reality of it, it's also the robotic voices in the students. It's also them being able to answer questions they expected in fluent English. And then there comes a question they did not expect, and suddenly the English level drops significantly. We know right away. And if we know, if my team knows, so does CCCU in a precast interview, and so does definitely the UKVI officer. And scripted student is a non-genuine student. They're deemed as non-genuine. Therefore, in our processes of suitability interview screening, which I'm going to go to in a second, we aim not only to test a student if they've done their research, but really to help the students understand that they should be speaking in their own words and help them in ability to communicate, help them tap into their own research and help them tap into their own motivation to speak in their own words, but also guide them in the research that still needs to be done, because it's a really fine line on preparing the students and over preparing them and hand holding them throughout the whole journey, or letting the student lead you through their journey. So let's go through the stages. So initial screening is the in-uni consultation. We can go to the next slide. That's all right. Thank you. That was good. Thank you. So what is an in-uni consultation? So it's an AI-powered consultation system where a student receives a link to join. As Kasia already mentioned, this is absolutely wonderful for the students because we know that you're all on this call are based all over the world. There's plenty of time zones. Everyone's busy. Even if you don't have a job, 21st century, everyone's running. Nobody has time. And then you're suddenly glued to UK working hours. That doesn't work for our students. So what we did is an AI-powered consultation. It's up to 20 minutes. We see students finishing it even quicker. But at the moment, we see that the average is around 15 minutes and the top being 25 minutes. And they can take it literally any time of the day. It can be the weekend, it can be Diwali night, it could be Christmas, and it could be 6 a.m. in the morning, and the link will still be available and ready to use. What else is exciting is that students can then go at their own pace. When the student receives a link, they have 2 weeks to complete a consultation. However, once they enter the consultation, they need to finish it. So when they enter, they enter. They should have their passports ready to be scanned and passports ready really for the precast interview as well. But what students will also get from this consultation is that at the end of each consultation, we also send feedback for the student that will help them not only in their precast interview with Triple CU, but also in their UKVI interview. So how does it go? Number one, student needs to do identity verification. So they need to have their passports ready in order to scan it. It's quick and easy, not painful at all. Think airport gates where you just put the passport on the gates, really few minutes. Then they're tested on their stability and motivation and English proficiency. And as well, there's proctoring. So we are checking if the students are not reading from external sources or anything else is happening that might fail them in later steps. Students will be students, and I know that. And sometimes the urge to get a sticky note with a correct answer will still go to them. So don't worry, we are going to inform the students to put it away. However, just as a reminder that if students are taking any notes to a precast interview, there's not going to be such a case and they will be failed on the spot. So it really automates the student journey and it helps them to go through the student journey quicker and prepare them for the next point, which is in the next slide, which is the precast interview by Triple CU. So what is it? So it's an interview conducted online by Triple CU's admissions team. It happens after unconditional offer is made, as Kasia already mentioned, and before the CAS process starts. It's also usually short. It's 10 to 20 minutes. There's a few questions asked. Again, Triple CU doesn't have a script. So I know that the most common question I'm going to get is, what am I going to be asked? And I can ask on behalf of you, I can ask Triple CU, and I already did, and the answer is they don't know themselves because it's an improvised interview. It's just a few questions, and remember, it's not a test. Neither the consultation or precast interview is a test, therefore you shouldn't prepare your students for it as a test. It's a conversation. The university wants to know the student. The university wants to know who are coming to study with them. It's scheduled via email and you can reschedule, the students can reschedule, but that needs to be done at least a few days in advance. If a student loses the interview if they do not attend the precast interview without informing the team. They might lose their enrollment altogether and their student journey might end there. So we need to be very careful that students are attending these. On behalf of InUni, we're also helping you chase these students. However, I think you understand how important it is that they actually do attend, and where impossible, they do let us know that they're unavailable to attend. It's also held on MS Bookings platform. So no other link. If you receive something from Google Meets or I guess Skype, I just know that that's not the correct link. We are looking for MS Bookings. They do not need to create a Microsoft account in order to join it. They can choose to join on a web version. And from my experience, joining on a web version actually really, really helps for students, especially in a more remote areas, because it avoids latency issues. So it's really easy to join. Just join through the browser. Uh, Students will get an email. We'll need to click on the link to join, and that will be it. So what happens? What are the students going to be asked about? So while we don't have set questions, we know set topics. What you can help the students prepare for is why this university, why UK, why the course. You might be asked, the students might be asked to compare the universities, the countries, etc., and compare the courses. How much detail do we need to go in? Not enough that the student comes in front of us and starts reciting a text from the website. One moment they start reciting one by one or telling us the amount of trees on the campus, you know that that's too much. They need to sound natural, yet they need to also do their own research. So it's a fine line between over preparing and under preparing. And the best way to avoid either is letting students do their own research and just providing topics of where and what the research should be about. But with that, let's go to the next slide. So common interview challenges, poor communication. Poor communication is not necessarily poor English. Sometimes students get nervous and start answering open-ended questions with just yes or no. That won't work. This is an interview. They need to speak. At the same time, we have students that are speaking for 5 minutes after a closed-ended question. So there's a fine line between, again, giving too short of an answer and too long of an answer. The best way to avoid it is practice. One of the practices is provided. That's the that's the InUni CCU consultation, the AI-powered tool, and the tool would also give students feedback on their communication skills and how to improve. But also students can always practice with you, with us, and even what I like to say with the mirror. The mirror is the hardest one to practice, but the one that yields the best results. Unexplained academic gaps. So if the student has any academic gaps or anything else that they're worried about, rule number one is if a student is worried about something, do not hide it. Make it into an advantage. If they have a previous work experience that's related, etc., they need to look at their journey getting into the university and learn to speak about it confidently. Inconsistent information is something that we see a lot. So when students upload an SOP or CV or even transcripts and then speak in the precast interview and the information doesn't add up of what's written in the documents and what's said in the interview, that would be an immediate rejection on all 3 interviews. Lack of course knowledge. So a genuine student is also an informed one. I always like to say that you don't just wake up one morning and think, I want to buy a car. You go out to the first dealership and buy the first car you see. That's not how it works. You would do the research. What's the mileage? Is it a used or new car? What brand? Is the same way you don't just wake up one morning and realize I want to study abroad and go to the first country and the first university and the first course you see. You do your research. So doing a research is extremely important because it shows that the students are genuinely interested in UK, genuinely interested in Canterbury Christchurch University, and in the course they are applying. Previous visa refusals. So unfortunately, with majority of visa refusals, you will not be able to get admissions. However, if there has been any reason why you believe it could still be possible, for example, you believe that there was a mistake in your previous visa rejection or it was due to documentation issues, you can reach out to interviews@inuni.global or to myself, and we will help guide you if it's still possible. And no post-study plans or ties to the home country. So students need to show what are their plans after studies and how will these studies improve their journey home. And with this, let's go to the next slide. So, increasing UKVI strictness, let's address the elephant in the room. All these interviews, they might sound daunting, but in reality, they should be helping you and your students. While the environment is getting stricter, so as you know, UKVI assessment has had a focus shift from documents to credibility to interviews. We are seeing a few more visa rejections than before. These interviews actually help the students prepare, and uni is here to support you through these times. And just a reminder that it's not universities that are automatically strict, but it's the UKVI expectation change in the last few years and how they are screening. So in UNI's dual screening, the stability and compliance interview acts as a frontline defense, ensuring only genuinely qualified applicants reach the university's admissions team. And before we go to the next slide, I know the question that always goes in this webinar. So how is consultation, precast, and UKVI questions different? They're not really. So all three interviews are supporting each other. And really, with each interview, students should start gaining more confidence for the next one, because going to one interview is a way of knowing what to expect from the next one. And if we go to the next slide, and I believe this might be my last slide, I just wanted to go through UK agent quality framework, but I won't dwell on it too long. I see the participants here today. I see a lot of familiar names, and I know that majority of you, if not all, has already went through British Council training. You are all qualified and know all the quality frameworks you need to go through. If you, however, need a reminder in any point, here to support, but also there's this slide. But again, I know that all of you have already went through it, and we're really, really happy to have such a strong network with us. And we're hoping that with these consultations and interviews, we can support you and your students further. But with that, I believe I'm going to give it back to Neha.
Thank you so much, Saleh. I think this was fantastic. I know we've gone a little over time today, but the fact that we have so many participants still with us speaks a lot about the passion each one holds. So thank you everyone for still sticking around. We do have a couple of questions, and thank you, Kashia, for supporting me in answering them through chat, a couple of them. But may I request both Saule as well as Kashia and Mercy, feel free to jump in to any question that they feel appropriate. And for the ones that we haven't been able to answer, I promise to still reach out to each one of y'all and give out the answers accordingly. But Mercy, just before we start the Q&A, somebody is very happy to see you here. So that's a good start. But yes, Kashi and Sauli, if you could read the questions, and then probably we'll just look at a few answers. Kasia, to begin with you first.
Sure. I think we have quite a few questions here, and I'm trying to answer them as we speak.
Maybe let me give
Uh,
you one. I think there was
yeah.
one question about, or a couple of questions about how much gap is accepted, right? So if you could help us with this one for the students coming through.
So just maybe if we go back to the slides, there should be a slide there that exactly specifies. Saule, maybe if you remember this from the top of your head directly for UG and PG. And we're talking about academic gap, right? For the student to be able to
Yes.
apply for all, because it is specific also in the region. So there may be specific, so I don't want to give the wrong answer. It
No,
depends also on the
absolutely.
So I
country
think I
and so
can
on,
jump in
right?
here. Sorry. So it will
Yeah.
depend case by case, and it will depend on the level of studies as well as the country the students are coming from. However, my advice would be no matter the study gap, it can be adjusted and fixed with your SOP and CV. So make sure if there's an academic gap, you are covering it in the CV. What have you been doing? Even if it's just 1 year, I'm pretty sure the students were not just hanging out on their parents' sofa. There has been either volunteer work or any work, even if you feel it's not completely related. And then in your SOP and in your precast interview, in the student's SOP and precast interview, they will also have a chance to explain the study gap, the academic study gap, and support their case. Now, the actual years will depend on the student's case, so feel free to reach out to us regarding your specific cases, and we'll be able to help there more.
Thank you, Saula, for that. You navigated this really well. Okay, I think we have a few more questions, so I will go in the order from the top to the bottom, really. And I know, Saula, you want to answer a few as well. So I think we had a question from Aisha, or maybe not a question, a statement saying usually financial documents like bank statement is required at CAS stage, but here it is mentioned to upload financials on the portal at stage 4. Well, we refer to it as CAS stage. I'm not sure. Maybe the university has sent an early reminder to the student asking for financials to be uploaded. But in general guidance that we receive from Canterbury Christchurch, it is to upload financials when they get to the CAS stage. That's the regular protocol, Aisha, that Canterbury Christchurch follows. I think, Saula, you wanted to answer the next one. If student fails in the pre-CAS, will you give another chance, instruct for the refund?
This is a brilliant question, and I think I'm going to answer it slightly longer, covering all 3 interviews again. So precast interview, if you fail a precast interview, you might be eligible to have it again, but only in a year's time. So if a student, let's say, fails today, they would be able to reapply in a year's time. Now, however, if the student has failed a precast interview because they were cheating, that means that the file is closed and there will be no other way to apply. There are exceptions, such as if the university deems that it was due to internet connection or there was really any technical errors during the interview, they might get it again. Now, consultation, can they get another chance? Again, if the student was cheating, no, never. If the student failed due to stronger cases, such as no research done or very poor English, they would be able to apply for the next available intake. However, just a reminder that if a student is not fully prepared for the consultation, we do offer second chances, not third ones, but we do offer second chances where they can try applying again with the feedback. While with UKVI, unfortunately, I know you all know the answers. If you have a previous visa rejection or a new one, that means you wouldn't be able to reapply unless it was anything that you are challenging. I hope that answers the question.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Sonia.
Saula.
Yeah, sorry, Kasia. Go ahead.
Over to you, Neha.
Okay, yeah. So I think we're running over time. So what we would do, because I'm going through the questions and I know that we have an amazing team on ground who would be able to support you guys and answer all these questions. And I'm here to support you all as well. But we would now like to bring an end to today's session. Actually not end, because I think this is just the beginning of more stronger applications, the beginning of more confident conversations after hearing our admissions, compliance, and everything amazing that we have to offer as Canterbury Christchurch University. So, one thing that I would still like to put across towards the end is that our May intake closes early next week. 20th is the deadline at this moment. So, you have everything that it takes at this moment with the strong application, understanding everything that we just spoke about. Please feel free to put in the applications for MSc International Business as well as MBA International. These are the 2 courses that are open. And for all the students who are just beginning their journey, we have a September 2026, which is waiting for your moment. But thank you once again, everyone, for joining. Kasia, would you like to say something at the end? Or Saleh, Mercy, over to you. And then we'll just close the session. But thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much, Neha, for that. I can see there's a lot of questions here, so that really shows me how keen everyone is and that we still have got 287 participants in the live session. I have answers to all of your questions. I was literally trying to type as we went through. So please, I'm asking my marketing team, please send me all of these questions. We will get them answered with my team to make sure that every single one of you is reached out to on these questions that are here. I think, Chinks, maybe we can copy and paste these questions onto a spreadsheet and we can then reach back out to the relevant individuals. I just wanted to say on my side, if you want to still join May, as Nay has said, please do it now. My team is ready to process your application really quickly. I know some of you were asking about timelines. Timelines are superb. We receive your application within the same day or next morning. We process it. As soon as we have the documents, that's referred to Canterbury Christ Church, and within 72 hours, Canterbury Christ Church will give you an offer letter, unconditional offer letter. So the timelines are very competitive when it comes to the market. And as Neha said before, Canterbury Christ Church is one of the most beautiful universities I have seen. Anytime I go to the campus, I don't want to be inside just the campus itself. The campus is beautiful, but the grounds around it, the parks, the beautiful, they call it Garden of England, the beautiful churches and just the atmosphere. I really would say if I could study again, I would study at Canterbury Christ Church, and I'm not trying to be a salesperson here. I really mean it. And their team is so supportive, and they've just built additional facilities when it comes to the library and the general cafeteria part, where they're around all the students. I really, really recommend Canterbury Christ Church, and we're here to support you. We have vast knowledge, so do not hesitate to direct your applications to our team. Thank you all for your support and for hard work and navigating this challenging environment as it is at the moment. We really do appreciate your partnership. So that's what I just wanted to say on my side.
Thank you, Kasia. Anyone else who would like to jump in? Yes, Mercy,
Uh,
please.
Yes, so I wanted to say thank you, team, for the fantastic work done. I've really enjoyed the session, and thank you to our incredible partners who have joined us from all over the world. We do value this relationship. We do not take it for granted at all. The regional teams are there to support you over the next couple of weeks and days. I will be connecting with you individually in your different offices, remotely or in person in future. But as my colleagues have already said, the May intake is still open, fast turnaround time. I have been around the houses and I don't know anyone yet who is able to beat this timeline, and that is a lot. The turnaround time, you're going to get the support and the compliance and support from A to Z to ensure that your students arrive on the beautiful Kent campus, the Garden of England. I live very close there, so I can tell you for a fact it is what my colleagues have said. But I look forward to welcoming your students. I plan to go in person to the campus to support the welcome week so that the students can also see us, that we're doing what we said we will do. But thank you, everyone, and do enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you get up to.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, thank you everyone for your brilliant questions and the trust that you've built with us and the Canterbury Christ Church University. We're here to support you, and we would be looking forward to seeing you in the next session. Thank you once again. Have a great day. Have a great week. Take care. Bye bye.